Welcome to the Aging Well podcast. I'm Dr. Jeff Armstrong here with my co-host Corbin Bruton. In this episode, we're diving into a surprising topic that affects a lot of people, nighttime leg cramps. We'll be joined by a special guest, Patrick Sullivan Jr., the co-founder and CEO of Jigsaw Health. Patrick brings a personal perspective to this, having suffered from leg cramps himself, and is passionate about helping others find relief. We'll be discussing the root causes of these cramps, why magnesium might be the missing piece, and why that banana before bed might not be helping as much as you think. So stick around as we explore ways to get a cramp-free, restful night's sleep to age well. Patrick, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. We are really thrilled to have you here today. Let's just begin by having you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in muscle cramps and nutritional supplements.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Jeff Corbin, for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your show. Plug for you guys. I was listening to one of your recent podcasts of exercises to not do over 50 as you reviewed some crazy guy's video talking about exercises you shouldn't do over 50. And I agree with all your points.
Well, thank you.
It's so important to move throughout the entirety of our lives. And I think what we're going to talk about today is leg cramps and how I got interested in this. And it really stems back to, as a kid, I was playing soccer a ton. I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it seemed like there was a tournament every weekend. At night, after a long, hot day on the soccer field, find myself sort of sheepishly sneaking into my parents' room and saying, "Mom, my legs hurt so bad. Can you get me the heating pad?" I wish I knew then what I have known now, and I wish my parents knew then what we knew about the importance of two key minerals that we're going to talk about today.
All right, Patrick. So let's just jump right into this. I know that there's two different types of muscle cramps. There's the kind that happen during physical activity, and then there's the kind that happen, it just kind of hits us at nighttime. Like you get a Charlie horse at night and, you're fighting to get it out. But what's going on there?
Why those painful Charlie horses are the worst. And that's what I was struggling with as a kid. Something that I learned not that long ago, I'm almost ashamed to admit, probably about 8 years ago, I learned this from a member of Jigsaw Health Scientific Advisory Board, a naturopathic cardiologist named Dr. Decker Weiss. And he said, well, Patrick, there's actually two types of muscle cramps. When you're in the midst of an activity and you're running and doing some kind of sport, and you begin to feel that cramp, that's actually a potential sign of a potassium deficiency. And of course, people think, oh, bananas, potassium, cramping. Yes. And they're right in that case. But when you have those painful Charlie horses that come upon you in the middle of the night or after a long day of activity, and all of a sudden your hands are starting to feel that cramping, that's actually the sign of a potential magnesium deficiency. And bananas are not that high in magnesium. So bananas really aren't going to help with the second type of muscle cramps. And yet everybody thinks, well, if you're cramping, eat a banana.
The whole banana piece, and I just, in fact, had a conversation with one of my wrestlers that I do strength and conditioning with this week about bananas and cramping. And I told him he's going to have to wait until after I talk to you this weekend. I like pickle juice for nighttime cramps. I find it, if I'm getting a cramp at night, I'll just go down and drink. I have a jar of pickle juice, spicy pickle juice. And so you do talk, about magnesium is one of the keys for the nighttime cramps. What roles do these electrolytes really play in muscle function, and how do these imbalances kind of lead to cramps?
So I like to think of calcium and magnesium as like two kids on a teeter-totter. They're both electrolytes. They're two of the 5 key electrolytes that we need to get. But when they're out of balance, calcium clenches and magnesium relaxes. So when they're out of balance and one kid, the calcium kid, is a little too big, your muscles are clenched. And a similar thing happens between sodium and potassium, 2 other electrolytes. So sodium and potassium are next to calcium and magnesium on the teeter-totter. And sodium, when you get a little too much of it and you're out of potassium, you get that clenching. So our body needs both because it's the peristaltic action inside of the cells that those minerals are basically yin and yanging against each other. And that's critical. We have to have electrolytes. They're essential, like the batteries that help us to run. So we have to get both. The irony is that in today's food supply, it's so easy to get sodium and calcium. They're in almost everything. But magnesium and potassium, you really have to work a lot harder to get those two minerals. So to me, it's no wonder that cramping is as common as it is. Now, you mentioned pickle juice. I read an interesting article about that. So pickle juice is pretty high in sodium. And you're like, how is that working? There's another thing about mustard packets. Some people will use mustard packets. That's also high in sodium. I read, this is years ago, so I'm probably going to butcher it, but to the best of my memory that I can paraphrase it, they were talking about how the that's not tartness, but it's that pickly flavor that almost gives us a placebo effect. When it hits your mouth, the body has this belief that, okay, I'm getting in electrolytes. And it has this like almost placebo-like effect in how it works. Granted, I'm a fan of the placebo effect. If something works, it works. I don't really care.
Yeah.
In pickle juice, I'm a big fan of pickles. So if that, Dr. Jeff, is your like go-to trick, go for it. However, might I respectfully offer, why are you getting those cramps in the first place? Because the thing is, those nighttime Charlie horses are actually a signal of low magnesium. And if you can fix it with pickle juice, okay, cool, you solved it in the minute. But if you're continuing to get them, I would really encourage you to look at your magnesium intake and what you're getting on a daily basis.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you in terms of that placebo effect. And that's what I even teach my students about it. The reason I use the pickle juice and the spicy pickle juice is that capsaicin also, I think, has a little bit of that effect of triggering what you're saying, where it's a nervous system trigger to kind of relax those muscles.
Pretend I'm a dummy and I don't know what capsaicin is.
You must not like spicy food. And you're down in the Southwest. You gotta like hot, spicy food.
I do like spicy. It doesn't mean I know what I'm eating.
True. Yeah. So capsaicin is the thing in hot peppers that gives it that hotness. And I'm a hot pepper kind of guy.
So is that potentially triggering something in the brain?
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I actually learned it. I think the product is. I don't know. I went to a conference once and it's clinically proven. And it's like, yeah, that's a red flag for me when you tell me something's clinically proven. But there's so-called science behind it is that it's that the elements in what they're putting in there, which is primarily capsaicin, causes a neurological effect. So it's triggering something in the brain that's telling the muscles to relax. I don't know the exact physiology behind it. Haven't really dived into that yet. But I know that for me, it does work. It gives that instantaneous relaxation pretty much instantaneous relaxation of the muscles. But I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's what we talk about on this podcast is the preventative side of things so that we're not having to treat. We want to be able to prevent. And
right.
So I really like to dive into a little bit more about this role of magnesium and how our diets are really affecting whether or not we have cramps during athletic events or at night or whenever we might have them.
Magnesium is my favorite mineral. One of the things I like to say is I got 99 problems and magnesium solved like 98 of them.
That's a big claim.
It is a big claim. You've probably seen in articles, anytime that magnesium is written about, it's commonly cited that magnesium is involved in over 300 biochemical reactions. Well, here's the interesting thing about that number, 300, comes from the 1950s from Dr. Burt Valley, a Harvard medical professor, and it was his best guess at the time 70 years ago. More recently, magnesium researcher Morley Robbins has discovered that magnesium is involved in at least 3,751 biochemical reactions. I like to think of magnesium as the conductor of the orchestra. It's just involved in so many different pathways. And like I said earlier, if you're not getting it from your diet, those pathways are just not acting effectively.
When I was in college, I actually job shadowed a chiropractor, and this chiropractor was awesome. He wasn't just like Western medicine chiropractic. He threw a lot of like Eastern medicine in, but he was almost always prescribing magnesium, different types of magnesium, right? And I was like, why do you always push this magnesium? Thinking, oh, it's because he has like sponsorship or something like that. And he goes, you don't know how many people are truly depleted of magnesium. We have a magnesium deficiency epidemic in this country. I was like, wow, that's interesting. So I guess this segues into my next question. And as far as magnesium affecting everyone, would you say it's more effective towards athletes, or would it more be like widespread?
Yes.
And how can factors like hydrations, diet, and activities level affect the muscles cramps as we age?
Years ago, I was at a conference and talking to a woman about magnesium, and she asked a great question. She said, can I become addicted to magnesium? And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? You already are. Our bodies require electrolytes. We have to get them from outside of ourselves. Magnesium is one of the things that I mentioned earlier is just not that prevalent in food, and our bodies use it up constantly. ATP, the energy molecule, adenosine triphosphate, is actually Mg2 plus ATP. It's magnesium ATP. Our body, anytime it's using energy, and it uses it for everything, it's utilizing magnesium. So is it for athletes or everyone? Yes, it really is. It may show up more prominently in athletes that there is a deficiency because athletes are using more energy, but it really truly is with everyone. And you mentioned this, the chiropractor that you shadowed had a couple of different forms that he recommends. There's 3 different forms that I recommend. And one of the things we can put in the show notes, I created this simple little, my 5 favorite ways to get magnesium. 3 favorite forms would be magnesium glycinate, magnesium malate, and magnesium L-threonate. And I'll go through the differences of those quickly. So magnesium glycinate is a magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine. I like this one for nighttime use because glycine helps to calm down the brain chatter. And I find in my own personal life, I definitely at night need to calm down my brain chatter. So I like magnesium glycinate for that. Magnesium malate is magnesium bound to malic acid. And that's a little bit more of an energizing form of magnesium. So I like to take magnesium malate in the morning. And then the third one, magnesium L-threonate, a little bit newer of a form of magnesium. There's some studies from MIT that shows that magnesium L-threonate gets into the brain, magnesium bound to threonic acid. Getting magnesium into the brain, our brains use magnesium, our hearts use magnesium, every part of the body is using magnesium. So those are my 3 favorite forms of magnesium.
So are these muscle cramps that we're talking about, are they indicators of maybe other underlying health issues that people should be concerned about?
Dr. Jeff, I love that question because yes, leg cramps is like the canary in the coal mine for potential cardiovascular issues in particular. I mentioned Dr. Decker Weiss, the naturopathic cardiologist. There's another cardiologist, Dr. Dennis Goodman, who wrote a book years ago called Magnificent Magnesium. And he wrote all about the effects of magnesium on the heart. And one of the things he talked about, let's circle back to athletes here. There's kind of the commonly known issue in marathoners where each year towards the end of a marathon, a runner will collapse and be dead on the scene. And if you think about it, this is a runner that is a healthy athlete, right? I mean, they're at the end of the marathon, which to a certain extent means, well, they ran at least 25, 26 miles. Why are they collapsing? The best theory that I have heard is really that it is absolutely down to the end of their magnesium stores. And it's that clenching of calcium without any magnesium to push back in the heart that basically is the best working theory of sudden death at the end of a marathon related to draining the magnesium down to zero.
How does your Jigsaw Health supplements specifically address the root cause of muscle cramps?
As we've been talking about, magnesium is a magnificent, miraculous mineral, and our bodies really respond well to it, except when we take a sort of typical drugstore, okay, I'll just grab a magnesium oxide, magnesium chloride, magnesium citrate. Those are three forms of magnesium that are a little bit more common. They're also a little bit less expensive. And I think that's probably what makes them a bit more common. So those are a lot less absorbable and therefore a lot less tolerable inside of the gut. The genesis of Jigsaw Health, my dad and I started this company in 2005. So we're about to celebrate our 20th birthday. And he struggled for 30 years with various chronic health challenges, including GI distress and fatigue, also insomnia, which is a weird, thing to have, right? But low energy, insomnia. And one of the things that he found from reading health books back in the 90s, basically pre-internet, was like, okay, I look at a checklist of magnesium deficiency symptoms, and I've got all of these symptoms. I must be deficient in magnesium. I'll grab a bottle of drugstore magnesium. But because of the GI issues and the irritable bowel syndrome and the leaky gut he was struggling with as well, because of antibiotics and lack of probiotics that he built up. So this magnesium that he was trying to rebuild was just going right through him. So magnesium is hydrophilic. That's a fancy word that means basically magnesium draws water to it like a magnet. So magnesium citrate is often used to prepare people for a colonoscopy, because they're trying to help you clear out your bowels, right? That's using a side effect of magnesium. We want magnesium to get absorbed and basically uptake inside of our cells so that it can be distributed to our heart, to our brain, to our muscles, to all the places that magnesium needs to go. So Jigsaw Health, my dad, the first product we developed at Jigsaw was MagSRT. SRT stands for Sustained Release Technology. It uses magnesium malate, basically magnesium bound to malic acid, in a high dose, but it slows down the release over time. And Dr. Jeff, I'm going to trigger you here, but it has been clinically tested. And by clinically tested, I mean, we actually took the finished product. We had a human clinical trial, placebo-controlled with 93 subjects. It was called the Scottsdale Magnesium Study. It was published in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, which is indexed on PubMed. And that was in 2018 that study came out. Thankfully, MagSRT did beat placebo. We were happy to see that, but it showed an increase in mag serum, an increase in mag RBC, and a decrease in magnesium deficiency symptoms over the course of 90 days. So I'm sorry to say it, but yes, we are clinically tested.
That doesn't necessarily trigger me. I said that a red flag goes up when I hear it. And it's when companies then can't back that clinical claim up, or it's, some kind of clinical claim that, it's been tested, but we won't really show you the results, or the results are minor. There's, because anybody can test anything in a clinic, but it's the, clinical results that are most important. And so you pulled that red flag down pretty quickly by going into a reasonable sample size, the fact that it was externally tested, and that, there were results, and there were measurable results. They weren't just, because I did a study for a supplement company a number of years ago as a fat loss supplement. And I won't go into the whole story with that, but it got me quoted in the New York Times because that was the only study that did not basically design the study to have positive results, or flat out fabricate data to get favorable results. And the company wanted me to report that there was a 750 some odd greater percent fat loss compared to the placebo. And I'm like, well, that's true. But first of all, we don't report that way in the literature. And second of all, 750 times nothing is still pretty much nothing.
And so, is that how math still works?
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way. So I appreciate the results that you shared there.
Yeah. Well, for anybody that wants to look, I'm sure if you just Google Scottsdale Magnesium Study, you can find the results. And we're very pleased. I feel like it's, in this day and age, it's not too hard to get some 5-star reviews, but it is pretty darn hard to back up that data with good science. We were a little nervous going into that, but I want to know the truth. I'll take the Pepsi challenge against anybody because I just want to know the truth. If we can improve the product and make it better, then let's do that.
Yeah.
If it's working and we have so many 5-star reviews, let's prove why they're there. We are in a scientific field. The basis of science is to step back and observe and find the truth.
Thank you for reminding our listeners of that and our viewers.
Yeah. I love that
So
answer.
beyond cramps, what are some of the other unintended consequences of having a magnesium deficiency? What makes your
You say
magnesium
unintended
supplement
consequences like it might be bad.
Yeah.
I would say that some of probably the top 3. Energy is a big one that most people will see. Also, hair, skin, and nails. A lot of people think of calcium as like, oh, that's, strong bones. Well, magnesium is just as critical in the bone matrix. Hair, skin, and nails are a part of that system. And we've had, and in fact, one of maybe my favorite reviews, gosh, it's been a long time since I thought about this one, but I'm a guitarist. There was a classical guitarist that wrote in and talked about how his fingernails kept breaking until he began taking MagSRT. And for those who don't know, like classical guitar, it's a lot of finger picking. And so like the strength of your nails is super critical. And that was his profession. So, we've never really marketed MagSRT or magnesium really as a hair, skin, and nails thing. But I know that a lot of people struggle with that. And part of the reason, yes, it could be the biotin or a methylation problem with other B vitamins. That could be a part of the factor, but it may be something as simple as, once again, just not getting enough magnesium into the body. And again, that's why we recommend generally the high dose form, the MagSRT. And I think that those are some really, really nice unintended consequences. One more would be, of course, sleep. And sleep is a big challenge for numerous people. So I mentioned about magnesium glycinate. We use that form in a product called Jigsaw MagSoothe. It's a powder. It's 200 milligrams, which is about 50% of the recommended daily intake of magnesium. And MagSoothe, I find that my sleep has really just so benefited from that. And we're actually currently right now working on a clinical trial with Heads Up Health, the company that does diagnostic tracking. So if you have an Oura Ring or if you have an Apple Watch, they take that data, they put it into their system. They can also then correlate in blood work, blood markers. So they're like the data, the Google Analytics of like blood work tracking. And we're doing a small pilot study with them internally with their own team that was like, yeah, we'd like to try this. So we, maybe 6 weeks ago, sent them about 15 bottles of not MagSRT, but of MagSoothe. The day after the trial began, the president of Heads Up Health, David, sent me a text message with a screenshot of his Oura Ring data, and he had a 90 sleep score. He's like, okay, well, pretty good day one. So I'm hoping that we will have that test results by the end of this year, beginning of next year, because sleep is such a critical issue. And I think that magnesium is very involved, whether it is coming out in leg cramps or just literally like relaxation of the brain.
I'm really glad you brought up sleep because we interviewed other individuals on this podcast in the past and the professionals in sleep hygiene. I mentioned, well, what about magnesium? Because I started taking a magnesium supplement at night, either magnesium glycinate or magnesium threonate. And I felt that I was getting a much better night's sleep. And they're like, well, actually, the literature out there doesn't show much. So it's probably just a placebo effect. It's a great placebo effect.
Call them up, get them on the
love it.
show. Let's have a debate.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, if it's a placebo effect that works, or if it really works, I feel that it was working.
Are you still taking magnesium?
Not as often as I should, but you got me really intrigued about side effects of skin. It's probably TMI, but I've been having some skin issues. I just thought I was getting older and my skin's getting flakier. So I'm like, maybe I need to throw some lotion or oil on, and it's not going away. I was like, maybe it's a magnesium deficiency.
So let's speculate here. I got 99 problems and magnesium solved like 98 of them, right? So
Right.
magnesium being that fundamental element of the stuff that our body needs. One thing you could try is Jigsaw Mag Relief. We have a lotion version of magnesium chloride. I particularly like that when I out pickleball my magnesium intake and I end up with either sore calves or like my feet are sore. So it's like, okay, I outplayed. I was out on the court for 2.5 hours. I went through all of my magnesium that I had taken earlier. So I need targeted muscle relief. I would be interested to hear, and I will send you a bottle, Corbin, if Mag Relief in that specific targeted area helps with that, because it's a very clean lotion as well. It goes on easy. It's not gross. It doesn't smell bad, fragrance free. And I would be interested to hear if that helped.
Yeah.
All right. We got our next clinical
it.
trial underway.
Sure.
Then we could say
There
it's
we go.
clinically.
That's right.
There we
I think
go.
it probably takes more than one.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think science has too far downplayed anecdotes. I think anecdotes is where doctors and clinicians have really thrived over millennia, where they're like, I did see a similar case where this helped. I'm going to try that as well. And I think that science, the sort of academia science too far often downplays and writes off anecdotes. I am not a fan of that. I think that there are different levels of proof, but I think anecdotes are super, super important.
When there's such everybody's an individual and there's so many synergistic interactions between the things that we're doing and not doing that it's hard to get 100 people in a clinical trial that are all in the exact same circumstances, split them off into two groups. And I mean, even a twin study, twins are not identical in terms of their behavior and their, from the moment they've been conceived, their lives have been going off on two different trajectories. So,
yeah, I can confirm that. My two youngest sisters are twins. They're identical twins. And boy, growing up, I mean, they were identical. And out on a soccer field, the two of them played like their brains were wired together. They were NAIA champions years ago. But they're different people. I mean, they're different people. And of course, I can see the differences now. But there was funny, and we've often joked, I wonder if ever there was a time
One's the
where they
evil
got,
twin.
like, as babies reversed, and Christy is actually Karen, and Karen is actually Christy, but we never do that.
how would you know?
How would you know? I guess maybe my mom lays awake at night worried about it, and then she taktakes MagSoothe, and she's fine. She goes right to sleep.
There you go. I'm kind of curious, with the glycine connection in there. We had Nayan Patel on, who is kind of the glutathione person, and talking about glutathione as the master antioxidant and its important role, and glycine being a very critical component of glutathione. The connection of those two, if magnesium and glutathione, if there's a bit of a connection with that as well.
Yes, I know that magnesium is a precursor for glutathione. I'm not aware that glycine is a precursor as well. As you were talking about that, I tilted my head up and I was searching my Patrick GPT for information on that. I couldn't find anything. So I'm going to have to do some follow-up on that. I know one of the challenges, of course, with glutathione, it's also the master detoxifier in the body. So it's super, super critical to make it, but it's generally made inside of the body, whereas magnesium is external. We have to bring it in. So you can supplement, of course, with glutathione, but I think there's some DNA connections related to how well your body will uptake and utilize external supplemented glutathione. So one of the things that a conversation I do remember years ago with the aforementioned Morley Robbins, He's the magnesium researcher. He's also the creator of something called the Root Cause Protocol, really good program for people trying to figure out how to, overcome some health challenges. Root Cause Protocol is the name of that. But he was talking specifically about glutathione and magnesium as a super important precursor to glutathione. So I'm curious if that came up in the discussion at all.
I don't think so. I'd have to kind of listen back to everything, and I just finished reading the book. And he tends to really emphasize the role of diet and getting all the components in place, because glutathione is made in the body, and it gets used in the body so much too that we can begin to have that tank kind of be dropping off if we're not getting enough of it. We're not getting the products to make it. And so his supplement is a transdermal delivery system.
Yeah.
Gets it in, and the idea is to cap things off. But I have to go back because I know selenium is important in that, and a bunch of other minerals. And I think really anything like that if you're labeling it as a critical master antioxidant in the body or a master substance in the body, all these electrolytes have to be in the proper balance for everything to be functioning properly.
Yeah.
And
you mentioned selenium. That's another mineral.
Yeah.
Electrolytes are minerals. They're electrically charged minerals, and all of the minerals we have to get from the diet. Right. Our body doesn't make minerals. Glutathione is something that it makes. The body will make if we feed it. And it could turn out that, transdermal, which is, you apply it to the skin, it goes in through the dermis. That might work awesome for you.
Yeah, that's right. It does work a lot better, and the gut absorption is pretty poor for that.
Yeah.
And so that's why when you mentioned kind of the magnesium glycine, it's like, well, hey, that's probably better way of kind of getting some of that glycine into the system so that you have the products there to, make what we need in the body.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it goes back to the spicy pickle juice that you're running to in the middle of the night with a leg cramp, Dr. Jeff. It's like, no, I'd rather see you solving the root cause.
Yeah. And and this conversation get me thinking too, because I track my sleep scores and looking at the things that are benefiting it, not benefiting it. And my sleep, my fatigue levels right now have been relatively low. It's like, hey, I'm not consuming as much alcohol. We've shifted to eating an earlier dinner. And as I vary up some of these different variables, nothing seems to be surfacing as being the key thing. And so I got to try magnesium and see if that doesn't, have a positive effect in terms of making sure that even though I'm getting long sleep, I'm getting restorative sleep. Like this morning.
That's good. Restorative sleep is crucial. And I was going to say, how about I send you a bottle of Jigsaw MagSoothe and you can be a part of our Heads Up Health study.
Okay. I can do that.
With the Oura rings, and we'll start tracking your sleep score.
Well, I use a Garmin watch.
Okay.
Can they still track from that or no?
Yes. In fact, that's part of what makes Heads Up Health such a cool platform is they can take data from all of the different wearables and correlate it and put it together so that it's like comparing apples to apples. You can also then sort of, if you want to switch from Oura to Garmin or Garmin to Oura, you have sort of the history, your personal history. It's a really cool platform.
Yeah.
I'll take an Oura ring. Who else wants an Oura ring?
If you just we need Oprah on here. You get an Oura ring. You get an Oura ring.
That's right. In fact, gentlemen, check under your chairs right now. I had the producers put a bottle of MagSoothe and a bottle of Mag Relief. How about that?
Sad.
Could you imagine?
I can't imagine. It would be awesome, but I didn't know we were going to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going off on all kinds of different tangents today, but this is great. I think, getting that broader view of kind of what we intended to talk about is really good.
Well, good. One last thing that maybe I would throw in, because we didn't really talk a lot about potassium, but it does also play a very crucial role. I think it's a little bit more prevalent in the diet than magnesium. Jigsaw, we make a product called Pickleball Cocktail. And the reason we made that product, it has 800 milligrams of potassium, which is about the equivalent of 2 bananas, but it tastes like orange tang because I don't like to eat bananas. The reason we made Pickleball Cocktail, number one, Jigsaw Health, we have a particular affinity and love for pickleball, and we've done some niche marketing, if you will, into that. But over the last 2 years, 3 years, we've had a lot of registered dietitians picking up Pickleball Cocktail and recommending it because it's a very clean electrolyte formula, sugar-free, caffeine-free, 800 milligrams of potassium. And I've ended up seeing on Instagram people opening a packet of Pickleball Cocktail and there says, well, I don't play pickleball, but my dietitian says I need to get more potassium. So I'm taking this and yeah, it actually tastes really good. Tastes like orange tang. So Jigsaw Health, we also have you covered on that potassium side as well. And I think where I was circling back to is the reason we created that product is myself, as I became addicted to pickleball, I found that I was starting to cramp up while I was playing. And I was like, how the heck is this? Like, I take tons of magnesium. I shouldn't be having any cramps. But then I realized what Dr. Decker Weiss had told me. Oh, there's 2 types of leg cramps. I'm starting to get the first one because I'm playing so much pickleball. I'm out here sweating in the Arizona sun and I'm starting to feel like my legs cramp up. I guess I need to get more potassium, but I don't like bananas. Let's put it in something orange flavored that tastes great.
I kind of have this vision now in my head of like 4 kids in the playground on a seesaw. And, the seesaws, there'd be times when they're kind of out of sync and then times when they get in sync and then they get out of sync again. And we want to get that harmony going that they're always in sync or in that same rhythm because, you might get one of them balanced out, but then the other one, and I'm signaling here, we're on video and my hands are down below my camera, but it makes sense now. We want to have that proper overall balance consistently in our diet so that we don't get, too much potassium or too little potassium, too much calcium, too much magnesium, too little magnesium, and all those things.
I love how you extended that metaphor, thinking of harmony, thinking of balance, thinking of Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
Daniel-san, all of life, balance.
Certainly all
that was
of
not my best Pat Morita. I'd like to have another go with that one. Would that be okay?
Yeah, we could do a do-over if you want.
I did not prepare. I did not realize I would be doing Mr. Miyagi here today.
I meant to send you the email saying, prepare your Mr. Miyagi impersonation for today's episode.
Maybe if you have me on as a guest again, I can practice my impressions better.
That sounds good. I'm surprised I haven't broken into any impressions yet either that are really bad. I was just teaching cancer in my pathophysiology and exercise class the other day. And of course, I can't say tumor without saying it like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's like a tumor.
Exactly. And I'm sure your students love it.
They pretend to, at least. They want to get good grades.
Oh, that's the benefit of being the professor.
I thought Dr. Armstrong I thought he was hilarious. He'd come in and he'd tell a joke and I felt like no one else understood it because I was the only one that was laughing, but he always had me cracking up. And we started doing the podcast and he would still say some of the same jokes and I'd crack up and he goes, oh, you weren't just laughing to get a good grade. I'm like, you're actually really funny.
You tell my kids that?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We have a little saying, we like to say, laughter is the best medicine. Magnesium is a close second.
There you go. So how long should somebody take your products before they really notice a difference in muscle cramp frequency and intensity?
Gosh, that is a great question. Ironically, it can really start to work very quickly. I was telling a friend of mine, I don't know, a month ago about MagSoothe, and we were talking about leg cramps because I was telling him, I was giving him this podcast. There's 2 types of leg cramps, Bryce. As I started to talk about that, he goes, oh my gosh, my mom struggles so much with sleeping. I'm going to get her a bottle of Jigsaw MagSoothe. He sent me a text 3 or 4 days later, and it was a screenshot of what his mom sent to him, which was, oh my gosh, son, I slept so good last night. Thank you for that. It was her first dose. And she mentioned TMI. She was like, and I pooped really good today. So probably the 4th thing that I should have brought up as a quote unquote unintended consequence of magnesium is it is super crucial for regularity, that peristaltic movement, that action. Magnesium is great. And sometimes you can get the yo-yo effect if you have sort of like constipation and then you take a mag citrate. I feel like a mag citrate at that point is kind of like throwing a hand grenade into your GI tract. It clears it out, but it is not pretty. So MagSRT, the forms of magnesium that we use, magmalate, magglycinate, mag-threonate, will really help with the peristaltic action and just helping with regularity instead of a hand grenade.
Well, isn't that milk of magnesia is basically a heavy dose
Yep.
of magnesium.
It's magnesium hydrochloride, and it's not very absorbable. So it works really well to clear out the guts.
Well, I was thinking, as you were talking about the absorbability and the relaxation effect that magnesium has, that if it's not getting absorbed into our system, basically it could be causing us to even flush out other essential nutrients and things like that in our systems because we're not allowing enough time for food to be properly absorbed as it goes through the digestive tract.
You nailed it.
So is that like the 97th problem that it solved?
Correct. Correct. It's the 97th problem magnesium fixes.
So I'm curious, you say that magnesium fixes 98 of the 99 problems you have? I have a daughter at 16 wants a car. For taking magnesium, suddenly give me the money to go out and buy her a car.
The 99, the problem it doesn't solve is it's not a money tree.
Ah, darn.
Yeah. But it will give you the energy to start planting trees. And the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago or today.
There you go. Words of wisdom there.
I believe that's an ancient Chinese proverb.
You should have said that as Mr. Miyagi. Oh, he's Japanese, so it doesn't
Chinese
work.
proverb.
What was that?
Although he was Japanese, right?
You guys are probably all too young to remember I forget the very politically incorrect commercial and what the product was, but it was an ancient Chinese secret.
I remember my
what that
dad
was.
quoting that
Yeah.
as a joke.
Yeah.
My dad is very funny too. I feel like, yes, he did that impression and I wasn't aware of where it came from. So thank you for bridging that divide for me, Dr. Jeff.
And hopefully we haven't lost any of our Asian listeners or viewers today.
No, we lost them all and they're all filing lawsuits.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
How do muscle cramps change as people age? And what are some proactive measures to maintain muscle health?
So as you age, that's a good one. I'm not sure. I'm not even going to speculate. In fact, if anything, I'd probably turn that over to Dr. Jeff and hear what happens to muscles as you age. The thing that I jump to would be like collagen. Collagen is a part of the skin and the muscle tissue. And we decline, like our bodies stop making collagen, I think in our late 20s or early 30s, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like maybe that could be part of that. There's also, I'm sure, a hormone component to muscles with testosterone production, and even estrogen is involved in muscle mass. So Dr. Jeff, welcome to the show. What do you think about that question? That's a great one from Corbin.
I mean, judging from our conversation, I would say that it's, and like most things with aging, it's not a matter of days on the calendar, years on the calendar, as much as, our activities level change, our use of muscles change, we become far more inactive as we age, and our diets become poorer as well. We've done some episodes on that where, how crappy the diets are of aging individuals because they just simply don't consume the foods that they need to be consuming. And so I probably would say, based on our conversation, that the simple answer is that, our likelihood of being magnesium deficient or having those imbalances in our electrolytes probably increases with age, just simply as a matter of lifestyle.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And usually I can kind of BS an answer to my students. And if I go back and look it up, I'm usually right. So yeah, I'll stand by that answer.
All right. I'll second it.
Okay. So do you have any recommendations for older adults beyond supplements to prevent muscle cramps, like exercise or dietary changes?
Gosh, I think that it goes without saying that diet and exercise are huge. One thing for me personally that I've really started to get into lately is meditation, specifically Dispenza meditation. Dr. Joe Dispenza, who's written a number of books and sells basically guided meditations that you listen to. I do it in the morning, right when I wake up. I do it right before I go to bed. And I've, through his research, started to understand that like the whole purpose of meditation, at least my interpretation, has been, I tend to be a fight or flight, high producer, got to get stuff done. What's the next thing that I got to do? But what I realized is it's actually a form of like, I'm always in fight or flight. my body is producing cortisol. One of the things I have struggled with is practicing arguments in my head, where I'll be thinking about an argument that I had or an argument that I might have in the future. What I've learned through Dr. Joe is that your body has no concept of time. It is in the moment that your brain is thinking about. So if your brain is thinking about an argument that you had, your body is in that argument right now. And I was subconsciously running that kind of program almost all the time. So through beginning to implement meditation, I basically started to allow myself, my body, to slow down and not be in a fight, not be in an argument. And because of that, what I've learned from Dr. Joe is that you begin to tell your body, okay, it's safe to create good healing chemicals now. Because his point that he brings up is like, if you're walking through the woods and you come upon a bear, is that the time to create? No, it's the time to either fight or flight. We in our modern day age, and I was I think, living example of this for almost 4 decades, where I was just constantly, chronically in a state of fight or flight. And I think I was able to sort of grit it out and to take things like magnesium to help calm my system down. But I have really, by embracing these, it's a 30-minute meditation when I wake up and a 30-minute meditation before I go to bed, just tell my body, it's okay. We're safe. There's not a bear chasing us. And guess what? You're not even in an argument. So meditation, I would think it's something that I have really begun to fall in love with and to begin to see results. One of the things that happened, Ashley is my wife and business partner. She works here in the company at Jigsaw Health. She's the chief marketing officer. And we attended a 7-day meditation retreat. If you would have told me a year ago I was going to go to a 7-day meditation retreat, I would say, you're crazy. That is stupid. I am never doing that woo-woo stuff. Well, now sign me up for woo-woo, because there's actually a ton of science and data that Dr. Joe, who is a neuroscientist, presents. Things like the body has no concept of time. So if you're thinking about an argument, you're in an argument. I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense. Well, 2 weeks after our 7-day meditation retreat, my wife said to me, you know what? You're not bouncing your leg anymore. You know, the kind of people that will sit there at the table and that leg is just jittering, bouncing. Okay, Corbin, I see you pointing at yourself. Same thing for me. Well, subconsciously, I turned that off because I began to practice meditation. My best interpretation of that is I've now caught myself when I'm about to start running an argument in my head. And I'm like, nope, I don't need to have that. And I think the end result has been I'm not bouncing my leg. I'm not in this fight or flight tensed mode. So like I said, this is all very new to me. This is my sort of best explanation for it. But I think anyone at any age, particularly as we age and our bodies become less efficient, the more we can relax it and slow it down by breathing. And I think there's, that highly recommend the Dispenza meditations. I think it really does trigger these health, healing, promoting chemicals inside of our body.
I don't think we've had that presented that way at all in any of our episodes. More and more we're hearing about the role of mindfulness in aging well. But why mindfulness? Well, it makes sense now physiologically that mindfulness practice, allowing our body the space to be able to repair itself in a healthy manner.
Yeah.
So one of the last questions we generally ask our guests, and we ask all our guests, and you've started to answer it already with the woo-woo meditation stuff that you've been doing, but what else are you doing personally to age well?
I am a huge pickleball addict. I don't know if you've talked about it on your show, but it has been, in the last 6 years or so, a huge part of my life. And there's, to me, no surprise that it is America's fastest growing sport. I think that the elements of athleticism, hand coordination, and the social aspect is, I think, the third leg of that stool, so to speak. Being able to be in an environment, laughing, playing a sport with friends, and don't take it too seriously. If you've never played, give yourself permission to be a beginner. The great thing about pickleball is that you can pick it up really pretty quickly and have some rallies back and forth and start laughing. And the other great thing about pickleball is that it takes a lifetime to master. It's more than just athleticism. There's skill and strategy. It's chess, not checkers. So I would say that one tip in particular, and especially it is very popular amongst older people. It has gotten a lot younger. Like the courts around Scottsdale, Arizona, it's almost all high school and college kids on those courts now. But I know there's places like in Florida called the Villages that have, I think, 140 courts.
Wow.
The whole community is a pickleball mecca. So if you're thinking about picking it up, really give yourself a chance to pick it up. I think it's one of the best sports out there.
I might have to consider that.
So Patrick, is there a way for our listeners who are really interested in, maybe they want to purchase a pickleball cocktail or any of your products for that matter? Is there a way for them to reach out to you, to communicate with you, to buy your products, to just have a conversation? Is there a way for them to get
for
connected
sure.
with?
The easiest way to find me is on X, Real Patrick Jr. That's my handle, and my DMs are open if you want to send me a link. Of course, you can find Jigsaw Health products on jigsawhealth.com, also available on Amazon, and we might even be available at your local naturopath or chiropractor. About 20% of our business is through healthcare practitioners like that. Would love to have you start taking any of our products, Pickleball Cocktail, MagSRT, MagSoothe. Actually, all three of those would be a great place to start for someone that hasn't really been taking any nutrition products. If you don't like them, we have a 90-day return policy, no questions asked. It's really no risk at all.
So can you share any other exciting developments or upcoming products from Jigsaw Health that are related to muscle health and aging?
Yes. Thank you for asking that question. We're right now researching a product. I believe the brand name will end up being Endurance Kick. It's a very cool, simple formula that helps to increase blood flow. It's really kind of a pre-workout. So it increases blood flow, which of course helps you with stamina and lifting and your workout. But there's also an element of some appetite suppression. And then the third aspect is some visceral fat reduction. One of the raw ingredients has some good clinical data on visceral fat reduction. So to me, in my own personal life, we created a documentary. We hired a documentarian to film the first season of the Arizona Pickleball League that we created. And that documentary came out just recently on Amazon Prime Video. The documentary is called Breaking Pickleball. It's 6 episodes. It's the story of 5 teams battling to try to get to the Orchard Championship Cup. And the reason I bring that up, number one, it's a super fun watch. It's it's family friendly. We bleeped out all of the curse words. Episode 4 was a little bit difficult because the character in that had a bit of a potty mouth, but we cleaned that up for everybody. So it's family friendly, very inspiring, fun story. But I bring that up because when I was looking at myself on camera, I was like, they say the camera adds 10 pounds, but it looks like it's adding like 30 pounds. I need to really kind of dedicate myself to my workout routine. And I began to use basically the foundation of what is now Endurance Kick as a pre-workout. And I really have been happy with the results. I'm down from 220 to 190 over the course of 18 months. And I like to say I did it slowly, not fast. And I think that really is the better way to go because the muscle definition is way better there. I use a tonal each morning. I'm a big fan of the tonal. It just fits into my routine really well. And really just getting better with my diet. Greek yogurt in the morning instead of nothing. Turns out that protein is really helpful. It's great for the gut. Instead of a junky protein bar, Greek yogurt with some pumpkin seeds and honey and blueberries, like just some of those kind of changes, those kind of tweaks that have really helped me to lose that weight.
That's a power. You got your protein from the yogurt. You got some testosterone boosting from the pumpkin seeds. You got your good carbs from the honey.
Thank you.
Healthy.
Well, you know what else is in pumpkin seeds? Ounce for the highest amount of magnesium. You nailed it. That's right.
I've gotten really into skyr.
What is that?
Skyr, SKYR.
What is that?
The Icelandic yogurt.
Oh,
It's a little bit different. I like the texture so much more than Greek yogurt,
Hmm.
and it tends to have a little bit higher protein to it. I don't know what the magnesium content is. I got to look that up, but
Toss some
yeah,
pumpkin seeds in, you'll
yeah,
be fine.
here we go. Was there anything we missed
Oh my
in
gosh.
today's conversation?
I want to thank you guys for letting me rabbit trail the heck out of this thing. I find that I answer questions somewhat like Donald Trump, where I just kind of roll and walk around. He goes, but he calls it the weave. Well, I get back to the answer, but I'm going to weave in some other loops and trails and for me to just hear and talk. It really, to you guys, great questions, a lot of fun stuff to talk about. I hope your audience really enjoyed it.
I hope so too. I'm sure they have. Unlike a politician, you actually came to answers. You didn't just kind of weave around things and not ever get to an answer.
That's true. I think the only thing I dodged was the question about aging muscles. And I just handed that
Yeah,
right back to you, Dr. Jeff, and you hit it out of the park with a very great speculative answer.
I love those speculative answers.
For
So
sure. For sure. Well, all of science is, speculation until we have proof.
yeah,
And then we're still kind of speculating because how many knowing things that we knew have we reversed and been like, oh, it works this way instead. So, it's just constantly searching for the truth, constantly searching for how to make our life and other lives better. Because Jigsaw Health saying goes, it's fun to feel good.
now is that kind of where the Jigsaw name comes from? Is putting the pieces of the puzzle together, or where does it come from?
Great question. I mentioned that Jigsaw Health was started by my dad and I in 2005. In 2004, he published a book called Wellness Piece by Piece. And it was really the chronicle of his journey over 3 decades to find the pieces to his health puzzle, which involved things like remineralizing his body, improving his gut health with probiotics. One of the biggest things, quite frankly, was he, being born in the 1950s, had a mouthful of mercury amalgams, 14 mercury amalgams that got removed in his, basically, I think around 27, 28. But that was kind of the beginning of him like, okay, I removed the poison, one of the poisons. Now, how do I begin to fix the damage that was done? And he and I are involved in a group called Consumers for Dental Choice, which has been working and lobbying for many years now to ban mercury amalgams. Recently, we had a very favorable ruling from the FDA that said, at the very least, mercury amalgam should not be used in sensitive individuals, including pregnant women, children, individuals with immune sensitivity. So getting the FDA to say anything and put some sort of restriction on mercury amalgams, AKA silver fillings, the black fillings inside of the teeth, getting them to agree to anything was kind of a big victory. We're actually having a lot more success worldwide. The European Union has banned it. A lot of countries in Africa have banned it in progress. And I know that we are going to win that battle and remove that poison from off of the calendar, from off of the register. There's no reason for mercury amalgams to be used when the porcelain and there's other alternatives that they work better and they look better and they're not poison. So fight that we've been involved in for almost 20 years.
I had no idea that fight was still going. It just tells you how slow and ignorant our FDA is. I mean, I
Yes.
just learned last week that they still haven't, they're in that process now of banning lead pipes. It's like, and they're given 10 years now for cities to get rid of them. It's like, well, how much damage is going to be done in 10 years? Yeah. And to think that people can still get mercury put into their mouths, that's insane.
Well, that's the right word. It's insane.
Yeah.
that's actually, I mean, they just talked about that with one of the big trials that are going on. Because I don't know if you've been paying attention to some of the trials, but they're pushing like a lot of health and nutritionists are coming in, but they also have orthodontists that are coming in, and they're fighting against exactly what you said, the fillings that cause the mercury poisoning. I just saw that. I literally just watched that 2 days ago.
I'm not aware. I'm aware of a
And-
ruling on fluoride that happened recently in California. I'm not aware of this trial. If you
Mhm.
could send that to me, I would love to read about that.
It's really hard. You can only watch it live, and you can only watch it on certain YouTube channels. They're talking about food like what gets put in our food. They're talking about certain supplements that are okay, but not okay. And they're comparing the United States to other countries. It's fascinating how many people are getting on board. I can't get enough of it.
You know what? The revolution is
wow.
happening. Make America healthy again.
Yeah.
That is the most important movement in my lifetime. I am thrilled to be a part of that in some small way, and like the things that we're doing. In fact, the crew that made the Breaking Pickleball documentary, breaking news here on the Aging Well podcast, we are in pre-production to do a documentary called Breaking Big Food, featuring Callie and Casey Means, Dr. Casey Means, two really outspoken, well-spoken individuals that were recently on the Joe Rogan podcast. Previously, they were on the Tucker Carlson podcast. Dr. Casey is a Stanford-trained doctor. Callie, her brother, is a former lobbyist. And the way the two have sort of put the pieces of the puzzle together of how over the last 40 years, starting within the 1980s, the tobacco companies buying the processing companies, and where it all stemmed from there.
So that's what they talk about. That's what they talk about in this.
You got to send me that link. Put the links in the show notes too, because I think there is so much good momentum happening here. And really, you know, I'm a believer in free markets and capitalism, that the market will demand and is demanding better quality, whether it's, organic and regenerative and, glyphosate in the pasta. All of the crap that has infiltrated the American food system over the last 40 years, we got to get rid of it. We got to get rid of it. And we can because companies will respond to the market. If the market is demanding better food, the market will provide it.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Make America Healthy Again. We're in the process of kind of trying to put together an episode on that. Because I think that underscores everything that we're doing in the Aging Well podcast, is we're trying to make America healthy again. And I do have put out a request to their Facebook page to try and get RFK on. And you mentioned the other two. If you got any connections to get any of those on this podcast, please share them with me, or let them know that we would love to have them on here, because I think it's important for that message to get out that there are a lot of things that we can do as communities to help our neighbors to get healthy.
Yes. Well, Callie Means, not a doctor. He's a lobbyist, a reformed lobbyist, he might call himself. He's a fellow Phoenician, along with myself. So he's my connection to that world, and I'll be happy to make the introduction.
That would be awesome. So anything else we can wrap up with? Because we could go down a whole now that we want to do an episode on Make America Healthy Again, we can just keep going with that right now. But
if you guys are good, but we could keep talking.
Well, we might have to save you for another episode, because you mentioned you have another documentary coming.
Yeah.
Maybe once that's coming out, let's bring you back on, talk more about that topic. And I'm going to look into seeing what magnesium can do for my sleep and my overall health and fatigue. And Corbin's going to see what it does for his skin. It works on skin flakiness. Does it work on brain flakiness? Because maybe both of us can.
It does. That's the
Mag-3,
but you got to take it internally.
All right. Well, this has just been an awesome conversation. It's been very informative. We'll just kind of wrap it up with telling you to just keep doing what you're doing and keep aging well.
Thank you. Appreciate that a lot.
Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.